Hey, this is Troy Erickson from copywriting.org, and today I'm back with yet another really cool, really unique interview, something I have not talked about before. But the reason I'm interested in this topic is because when I first got into the copy space, I heard Justin Goff talk about how he was raising so much money for dog shelters and what he was doing with this copy, and it was just pure genius. And recently, I raised a lot of money for hurricane relief on my own email list, and then I have a guest today who has sold literally millions of dollars for nonprofit businesses and is going to talk about some of the things that you can do and you can learn from nonprofit businesses to apply to any business and how she can help you do that as well. So I'd like to welcome Alena Plavšić.
Hi, Troy. It's wonderful to be here. Thank you so much.
Of course, yeah, it looks just as cold over there in Kansas City. I'm in Denver right now, so we'll get it heated up. We'll get talking about just making money with copy, especially related to strategies that nonprofits use. So, on that note, can you tell us a little bit about your background and how you got into the whole copywriting space and sold millions of dollars worth?
So I used to be an international news anchor, and I have a master's in journalism, but I didn't really like it that much. And then all of a sudden, somebody offered me this copywriting job at a nonprofit. It was a really great nonprofit, and I was terrible at writing. And I don't know how they kept me. They were really nice to me. For some reason, they had faith in me. And all I did for the first year or so was lose money for the nonprofit. It was awful. And then all of a sudden, I realized that, okay, so our main donor was going to pull out and our nonprofit was going to close its doors if nothing changed. So I was like, okay, I got to do something. I really don't want to look for another job in New York City in a recession. So I started modeling everything on how other nonprofits do everything. And it was awful. No money came in. And then I wrote an appeal that made all of a sudden a lot of money. And that was because I really cared about the subject. And somehow I managed not to use the official language, we stand for this, we are so wonderful. And that's what connects the nonprofit world and the for-profit world is the way you talk to people. Because almost anywhere that you read about, you get your mail, you get a credit card bill. Are you going to read that? No. That's why the most successful businesses and the most successful nonprofits, they use very personal language. And Troy's emails, your emails, right? They're always very, very personal. And you mentioned a few times, at least that I've heard, I'm sure you've mentioned many more times, that the more personal your email is, the higher success rate you have. So it took me a long time to figure that out. But once I did, everything just started falling into place. And I eventually, by now, I've raised over, I believe it's $8 million for various nonprofits. So it's, it's just, sometimes it just takes just one thing. You do one thing right and things fall into place and you start selling, you start raising a lot of money.
Yeah, it's amazing to hear because a lot of times, it seems like you're just pulling teeth to get people to donate money to causes, but then when you do it right, it's like $8 million, it's not a small amount. So what are some of the different causes that you've written for?
I've written for a musical program. I've written for church causes, for religious causes. I've written for animal causes. Well, I've done a lot of things, all over the place. So I can't remember all of them right now, but I really enjoy it. And it doesn't really matter because it's all the secret to any kind of writing and nonprofit writing as well is it's all about your customer. It's all about the donor. So as long as you talk about the donor or the customer, you're going to bring in a lot of money.
Yeah, that's another thing that I think I've heard Justin talk about before as well. Instead of, you're able to donate X amount of dollars per child that you're helping, but instead hey, every X amount of dollars that you donate buys a meal or 10 meals or how many ever for the person in need. So exactly. What are some of the specific stories or strategies that you've used to raise money for these causes that can apply to any business?
I think it's all about emotion. So as long as you touch a person emotionally, you can, because all decisions are made emotionally. And as long as you make a person feel something, then you're on the right track to raising money or to get them to buy something. And it's funny because in sales, you get something in return when you buy, but in nonprofit writing, the donor doesn't get anything. They just get a good feeling. It's almost like they're buying a piece of a story.
Right, exactly. So what are some of the things that you can provide to them as if they are a regular buyer, where they get more than just a good feeling? So I know like there's a lot of commercials out there and they're like, oh, we'll send you a kit in the mail and like a sticker and a badge. And it's like, yeah, those things can be okay, but have you found anything that really works that's just like an added bonus that just really gets people over the edge and makes them like feel amazing and maybe share with other people that they've donated?
I've read some research that said that when you offer to send somebody in return for a donation, that actually decreases the amount of gifts, because that turns on the quid pro quo, whatever in your brain.
Right.
And instead of feeling generous, you're like, okay, what am I getting in return from my $5? Oh, just a pen. Oh, forget it. But if you give them something that's it's mostly intangible. Sometimes it can be a card from somebody they've helped. And what I found to be very successful is either a meeting, it's usually a Zoom meeting, or a video from somebody they really helped. And people just love that. And it really, it's because you're providing that emotional closure. Here's what happened when you gave money to me, and this is how you helped me.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I did not think about that. So you're teaching me here.
Wow.
That's really cool to to think about just how people's brains work. And it's like, yeah, just if they're giving for an emotional reason, the thing they get back in return needs to be an emotion as well, rather than like a physical gift.
Yes.
In a lot of businesses.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm just really passionate about it. A lot of nonprofits fail because they, in return for this donation, and no matter how small the donation, the person who donated feels it was a part of them, maybe it was a lot of money for them. Maybe it was $5, but it was a lot of money. And they get a standard receipt. We have received your gift on this day. Thank you very much. And that just kills you. You're like, really? It's very disappointing.
True. So what are some of the things, if somebody's listening to this and they're a business owner, or maybe they're, also a copywriter, what are some of the things that, like the biggest lessons from writing and collecting donation money that you can use to write in a for-profit business and sell more products and services? Just because I feel like there's so much to learn from donation campaigns, and like most people don't apply those lessons to their regular business.
Thank you for asking this. This is great. I get to talk about what I love. I keep learning from for-profit and from the not. I really like applying both and see what happens. It's very interesting. It's like, kind of a chemical experiment, what's going to happen. But the most interesting two things that I found in both areas is emotion. So you got to get the person to respond emotionally, because people very often forget that you're not writing to a niche, you're writing to a human being. You're writing to one human being. And the other thing is you treat them like people. Don't pretend, don't hide behind a mask, be vulnerable, say it like it is, and just treat them like a friend, like a good friend. And so emotion and the way you're treating them. Be nice to people who donate or who buy from you. Develop a relationship. So that's the key.
Now, here's an interesting one that I just kind of thought of randomly here. Have you ever seen like an upsell in a non-for-profit funnel? And if so, how does that work? And how could that help regular businesses improve their upsells? Like in a funnel, of course, they ask you for more later, but is that a thing?
I don't think it's a thing, and I really wanted to try it. I really wanted to do this thing. The end of the year is a big time for nonprofits, and there's a lot of a lot of asks going on, and I really wanted to try an upsell. I've never seen it in the nonprofit world. I've only seen it as like the next time somebody mails you or emails you, it's like, oh, your last gift was 25. How about 50 this time? So yeah, upsell is my number one priority right now.
Yeah, that's cool. I think that maybe an idea just randomly. Of course, like asking them for more is great because it's like more of the same. They're most likely to do it. But what if there was like a very similar type of person in need? And it's like, oh, do you also want to help this person? Or maybe help this person's like mother, or like, I don't know, but just
That's
something
a
cool.
very interesting idea. I wonder though if it's well, I've read studies where if you ask for two people, it dilutes the effect of the appeal. So it always has to be one person. But would be very interesting to ask for another person right after that. I'm going to try that.
Who knows? Yeah,
Thank you.
maybe somebody listening to this will give you that opportunity. But
Thank you.
on that note, so I just want to be clear too. So Alena doesn't just do nonprofit work. Obviously, she writes in various other niches. I think you said alternative health and a few others. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So in writing for those, what is like one of the biggest takeaways that you've had just in general, or like one of the biggest lessons you've learned or a win you've had or something along those lines in just writing in for-profit? Because we've talked about non-for-profit the whole time, and you know, most people don't have a non-for-profit, but let's just say somebody's in the health space. What is like a really good lesson that they could learn in general?
I'm sorry, who can learn what? I've got a little.
So yeah, just somebody who owns like a health business or something. What is like a big takeaway that you could teach them?
Develop a relationship with your customer. Don't treat them like customers, treat them like your friend or family. Really care about them and make it show. Don't be afraid to get emotional, not as in crying on camera, not embarrassing, but like really tell them, you know what, I really appreciate you. Show them the appreciation. And what else can they do? Yeah, keep asking. That's what people keep thinking, like, oh boy, I'm afraid of asking again. I just asked yesterday. No, just keep doing it. Don't make the decision for your customer. That's the other lesson I learned.
Yeah, that's a good point, because and going back to what you said earlier too, a lot of companies, they make the mistake of sending as a company and they say we. But putting a face on the brand, it just speaks to like it's just so related to what we're talking about, because if one person is asking and one person you have a reading relationship with when you get their emails or you read their sales letter or whatever, it's just so much more personal and you can thank them and appreciate them. Whereas if it's a big we thing, it just sounds like every other company out there. And I completely know what you mean with nonprofits, but I've also seen for-profit companies do that. And that's just a very simple tweak they can make to like do substantially better overall. And I think the reason a lot of people say we is because they look at huge companies like Walmart, and like Walmart doesn't have a face of the brand, but there's a reason for that, because they're worried about like the valuation of their company and like how their stock is doing. And like there's so many people in suits influencing that decision. But it's like, if you're not at that level, 100%, like just have a face of a brand. And I think that's you know, very applicable to this conversation, and it allows you to get very emotional.
Yes, and that you can't get emotional if it's a we, right? And that's exactly what's wonderful about your company, is that you don't hide. You're out there, and that's very attractive. And if you're, you know, if you're listening to this and you have a company, the one tweak you can make is switch from we, which is I'm talking to you behind something, right? To I, and tell your personal stories. They have a lot of power. People are so tired of the distance, you know, especially after COVID. So give them human contact. We need this. And
that's a good point too. Like COVID did influence a lot of people to like finally bust out of their shell again, and they're just like craving human interaction now. So That's awesome. And obviously you can apply a lot of those things to for-profit. So
It's amazing if I just noticed this wonderful, interesting thing. If somebody is a wonderful copywriter for some reason, and they know exactly what to do for profit, and then they open up a nonprofit, and it's like their brain switched. It's all we. And it's nothing is about the donor or the customer anymore. It's crazy. And so that's one lesson that they can also take away from this is don't still be yourself in your company and in your nonprofit.
by the way, while I'm here and while I'm thinking about this, if people haven't heard of Google Grants, and this is for people who do own a nonprofit, if you haven't heard of Google Grants yet, if you're a nonprofit, there's like, I think search and display ads. Google will give you 10K a month in free advertising if you have a nonprofit business. So if you haven't done that yet, and Alena, it seems that you know about this, or you maybe know somebody who can, help. Like that's a great angle for you to like be the copywriter that somebody picks, because you can help them literally get free advertising. So anyway, that's just a little bonus perk for anybody with a nonprofit. So Alena, if somebody wants to contact you, whether they have a nonprofit or for-profit, and they want to use all the awesome strategies that we've talked about today, how should they contact you?
They can go to my website. It's copyology.net and, email me. I can't wait to hear from you.
And they will get a very personal email from you, not a, hey, it's us at Copyology.
Exactly.
So, I'll put that in the description as well. So Alena, thank you very much for being here. And thanks everybody else for watching. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you, Troy.